Alright, I just wanted to show my 94 Infiniti Q45. Looking to sell it possibly soon. It's had quite a few modifications to it. It's turbocharged. It's had methanol injection. It's not currently installed fully and operational, but some of the components are there. Fully tuned ECU. It's got a emulator for real-time tuning. You don't have to pull the chip out each time like you do on the on the rechipped ECUs for these older ones. I'm just going to walk around it, show some of the issues and the features of it. The body is in pretty good shape. The paint's got some blemishes. I mean, it's showing its age. It's a 1994, so definitely got some of the clear coat coming off. It's not washed very well, but I did hose it off yesterday. Most of the little run marks and stuff will polish out. There are some chips in the hood. You can see there a lot of that in the hood, rock chips and stuff across the front. No rust really that I know of. It's been an Arizona car as far as I know its whole life. The bumpers are both got some cracking and oxidation of the paint. You can see that there, kind of rough. A few dings here and there. Does have a front mount intercooler. I'll look over the pipe a little more thoroughly, but like this spot here, clearly it's been hit on a parking curb or something, so it's got a bit of a ding in it. I don't know if that spot's leaking that's in the compressor pipe, so I don't know if that's leaking or not, but might need to be checked. Tires are showing a little bit of age. I mean, they're in okay shape. There's a little bit of roughness to them. Front brake calipers, they're a little rough. They don't surge or anything when you push on them. They are a bit soft. I had to replace the power booster a while back. I don't know that it ever really got adjusted really well. So it could use some work just to stiffen them up a little bit. They're a little mushy, but it does stop fine. You just got to push the brake quite a ways, comparing it to like a couple of my other cars that are really touchy, but they work fine. No real squeaking of the brakes and no surging. So looking for any body dings. Front windshield does have a crack over here. I don't know if it's visible in the... Yeah, there you go. Not in front of the driver so much. A couple little chips. This trim piece around the window had starting to come off. It had some tape on it for a while to keep it from rattling. Driving down the road, the wind was hitting it. It's got some areas of the clear coat that are starting to peel. Up here, right here, some area. A little bit of a strange looking ding right here in the paint. Some chips in it around the doors. Scratches. The trunk has a fair bit of clear coat coming off. Not sure how visible that is in the video, but this whole section right through here is clear coat starting to come off. Some bubbles in it. Bumper, just like the front, it's got some cracks in the paint and some peeling. Some of this section in the rear could be contributed by the rear mount turbo. It does generate some heat back here. So installation was done a number of years ago. Still runs and drives fine. The turbo, I believe, is leaking some oil. Still produces boost, still works. You don't hear it. squeaking or anything. I don't know for sure if there's any play in the wheel, but it doesn't appear to be. Got a few spider webs because it's been sitting for a while. Air filter's back here. The rear exhaust tube has been heat wrapped for most of the rear section. If you follow the compressor pipe back to the front, you'll find some areas where it's dripping a little oil out of it. That's where I believe it's coming out of the unit. Yeah, spider webs. These right here, if you follow those up, these are if you can see on the video, there's the oil feed and return from the turbo, goes up to the engine block. Anyway, so your compressor pipe runs all the way to the front. In this front section, I've got some heat wrap where it goes by the catalytic converter. Clearly it's been hit a little bit on the ground driving over stuff. Take a look under the hood. Yeah, let's see, that compressor pipe also does come up under here. It's in relatively decent shape in that section. Doesn't look like it's been hit too hard on the ground, even though it's just quite low. Got some areas where it's gotten some scratches. It could use a little touch-up and paint. Ideally, if you were going to fully restore it, I'd probably pull that plumbing off and fix any dents and dings, and maybe check the welds for any leaks. Flush any oil that might be in there from the leaky turbo. The oil, outgoing oil to the turbo comes out of the sandwich plate on the oil filter. See it coming out right down here. So I can get to it. This feed right here that goes out, goes through. We've got an oil pressure switch here, or pressure sender unit that used to be for a gauge that's currently not installed. There is a little needle valve, not sure how visible it is, in here to adjust the flow to the turbo and pressure. And out of that, the oil feed goes back and then it returns over through here. I've got a slightly modified fuel filter. Filters out of it, and I've drilled some more holes in the hardware to let more oil flow. It's basically just used for a sight glass, so you can see that you got oil flow coming back from the turbo, and then that just drains into the valve cover here on the passenger side. Looks like it drips just a little bit. Up through here, there might be some of the tubing is getting kind of old and stiff, so there's some oil dripping out up here. Gets down on the exhaust a little bit, you'll see some smoke once in a while. From the intercool, comes back up through here, through the bottom, tile blow-off valve, mass airflow sensor. The connectors was getting bad, so I've actually got the wires soldered to the mass airflow sensor with some heat shrink tubing. All this intake plumbing is custom up to here. On the bottom you can see a tube for that. One of these fittings here is kind of sketchy, pops off. Not sure which one it is. One of these comes out. You got to keep an eye on it, so it needs to be replaced if you're going to fully restore it. Fan, clearly got some cracks in it. Been like that for a while. I assume at some point they might come apart, but so far it hasn't. I've seen a lot of them that are kind of like that. Like I said, everything's functional. This here Hob switch, pressure switch that was adjusted to come on at a certain amount of boost, and I use that to turn on the methanol injection. Here's the nozzle for the methanol injection. I'm sure that needs to come out and be clean, and maybe replace the jet or the nozzle in it. There's a little filter in it that would get kind of plugged up. check valve would keep the line full of fluid so it didn't drain empty, and it would start flowing faster with that check valve keeping the line. That actually used to go down over to a pump, and it would draw windshield washer fluid out of the windshield washer reservoir. Is what I used for the methanol injection. Use the clean stuff, don't use the stuff that's got all the bug additives. I just use the pure methanol or the mix, but just nothing with all the bugs and cleaners and stuff like that in it. Got a slightly modified breather, crankcase breather. Used to just go directly into here, but that would pressurize the manifold and would let the pressure out, so you'd blow the dipstick out quite often. That now routes over here to this little homemade PVC little breather box that lets the pressure out. Still, if you get the boost high enough, it can push out the dipstick occasionally, and that gets some oil coming out. So I've seen guys modify that with some kind of a retainer spring or Velcro or something that would help, but couldn't use some attention on the breather. I just as far as I went with it, it usually worked quite well. Just more recently started coming out, and it could be because I might have a little bit of blow by on the rings or something of the pistons, but T here for the boost gauge. That goes to the interior. We'll take a look at in a minute. The wheels are 350Z wheels. What do we got in the front? 255, 5017 on the front. On the rear, I got where are they at? 245, 45, 17. Sunroof does go up and down. It gets a little sticky right here where it hangs up on that edge. Sometimes you got to help it, but it will go up and down and front and back. It does function. The driver window does work. Passenger front does not, and I can't remember on the two backs. We'll try them here in a second, but clearly the front seats need some help. I've got seat covers for that, replacement actual OEM covers for both sides that I can send with it. I've got all the dash parts since I started doing all the modifications. Never bothered to put all the dash pieces back on, but I have all that. Can go back on. Has an alarm in it. Hasn't been hooked up for a number of years. Right now we got 239,655 miles on it, and that is accurate. The gauge pod I had up here fell apart, and so the gauges are out, and the boost gauge I was using was kind of sticking. It wasn't working very good. This is just kind of a cheaper one I stuck in there for now, but it does function. I don't know how well it works. I don't even think the boost part of it's in PSI. I think it's in inches of mercury, but anyway, it does give you a readout if you go into boost. These other wires are for, there was a narrowband O2 sensor and oil pressure sensor or gauge was in this pod. The little antenna up here is for the old alarm. Like I said, not really functional. The radio, it was working, then the display started going in and out, and now it doesn't turn on at all. So I don't know if it's just some bad solder joints in the connectors in the back or something, but it does have the CD changer in the back. The original one stopped working. That's still in the back. I've got another one that I picked up from somebody that does function, or it did before the radio stopped working. But air conditioning works. I think pretty much everything works in it. Go ahead and start it up. Still runs and drives good, although it does burn some oil. I've had to turn the boost down over time. It used to run about 7-8 psi and handle it just fine. With all the miles, potentially some leaky piston rings or something, it just doesn't seem to handle it as well. It just wore out. It's a lot of miles for a turbocharged, normally aspirated engine, but anyway, it does run and drive pretty well right now. Let's see. I know that one doesn't work. Let's see. Oh, the back one kind of hung up, so that one's not really working. Yeah, the rear windows are out. I do have some window regulators. I don't have one for the front passenger side. I might have the back ones. I don't remember. I don't think I've put them in. Anyway, so you can see it sounds run strong. Sounds good. Just some condensation. That's not the oil. The oil leak you see is just from the drips that you see in the compressor pipe. And when you get on the throttle, driving down the road, you'll get a little puff of smoke, but not a lot. And it doesn't smoke. You don't see smoke just driving down the road. ECU got in here. Here, I'll go around the other side and take a look at that. Had it out of here a lot of times because I modify ECU, so I've had this out probably 100 times, maybe, or more. Tested other ECUs, but it's been modified, reshipped. It's got the Motes Ostrich 2.0 emulator. Just plug it in the USB in the computer if you got the right software and address files and everything. You can modify it on the fly. Currently not mounted in there because I have it out all the time, but I'll have all the brackets for that. There's the USB cable for it. This seat works. The other one's got some issue. Once before, a little while ago, I had to replace the control in the door. I took care of that, and now it seems to be on the fritz again. It's the old boost gauge. Doesn't really work anymore. There's the parking brake release lever. Back seat is in pretty good shape. No real tears or anything. Starting to get a little bit of little teeny cracks in here in a couple spots. Unfortunately, it's had to sit outside the last couple of summers. Here in Arizona, it gets quite hot, but in pretty decent shape, but just the same. See if we can see the turbo spinning. Yeah, don't have any light. Yeah, it's not spinning, but take a look at the trunk. Over here, it's quite dirty, needs to be cleaned out. Two-stage boost controller. There's a regulator that adjusts the stage 2 boost. The stage 1 is just spring pressure, which is about 3.8, 4 psi of boost. This is your scavenge foot pump that pumps the oil back from the turbo back up to the front of the engine. Little timer circuit runs the scavenge pump for I don't know, about a minute or so after you shut the car off to get all the oil out of the turbo so it doesn't sit with oil in the turbo. So that's what all this is. Over here is the solenoid, and there's a switch. I'll go show you on the center console that turns that solenoid on and off, and that's what selects stage 1 or stage 2. That's the replacement CD changer that does function. That one, original Sony, wasn't working anymore. I do have the compartment, or the panels for the back. Cover up all that if you want to. You know, the old cell phone in here, it's not functional anymore. I'll switch down here. This one selects stage 1. If you turn that on, it turns that solenoid in the back on, routes the air through that pressure regulator that feeds the wastegate. That goes to stage 2. It's currently set on about 5 or 6 psi boost, I think. That's just a blank. It's not hooked up to anything right now. Seat heaters work. TCS is not working. I've actually disconnected that and then disconnected some of the wires in the back, so it didn't flash all that, I think. Anyway, that's a brief overview of the car. I don't think I have anything else to say about it. Like I said, most of this stuff will buff out. Use some little blemishes in the paint. Most of that should buff out pretty good. Obviously not the cracks in the bumper, but shines up pretty good when you give it some attention. And I think that's about it. Thanks. Pretty good looking car. Do one more pass around it. If we can see the suspension in here at all. It's got some adjustable uppers off of eBay. If you're going to restore it, I would probably suggest replacing those. It's got some adjustable tension rods. Bushings are probably a little out. There's some creaking and stuff that when you go over small bumps and turn the wheel, it does creak. So, I mean, it rides okay. It's a little stiff. It's lowered on California Custom Springs and Tokiko Blues shocks. I do have some adjustable rear uppers that I might sell with the car if somebody wants them. The camber wasn't too bad in the back, so I didn't put those on yet. The fronts had some camber issues because of the lowering, so that's why I put those on, the front ones on. But anyway, ride is decent, but like I said, there's some creaking and stuff when you turn, like go off the end of the driveway, the bumps there, you get some creaky noises. So that's about it.